I will try to keep my presentation, try to give it some context in line with the topic. But please bear with me, I'm a banker after all. I know the banker sometimes is seen as the devil. We are apparently the ones that caused the financial crisis not so long ago. I just want to get categorically state that I was not part of it. So please bear with me. My topic is going to be from a perspective of a banker, but not just concentrating on development financing, but also trying to give context as to some of the initiatives in place to currently foster development and innovation, and also ensure access to capital and access to finance for especially SMEs. So that is from that perspective that my presentation is going to be. So I hope it helps. I know that I speak to learned people in the room, and yes, I am the holder of a master's degree, but I don't know how I missed out on trying to study in the UK. So I think my ship has sailed. All right. Yes. Just bear with me.
There we go.
Wow, okay. Let me just make sure I'm pushing the right buttons. So there's a couple of questions. I hope you can hear me even if I don't speak to the mic. I think the room is small enough and I think my voice carry far enough. So there is a couple of questions that I start with when it comes to access to financing for MSMEs. It is regarded as one of the main stumbling blocks in the context of Namibia and the financing environment. So my main question is, are MSMEs really as important as everyone claims? You can open any magazine, any newspaper, any article, and people will tell you SMEs are the backbone of the economy. But the real question should be, yes, if they're the backbone of the economy in the Namibian context, are we really regarding them as such? And do we support them to the extent that they can actually claim their rightful place as the backbone of the economy? And the question here is why MSMEs as opposed to larger corporates. There's nothing wrong with larger corporates and providing access to funding. What we've encountered, thank you very much, he feels that my voice is not loud enough. What we've encountered, and what I've experienced is that the dollars spent per SME as opposed to corporates, the employment creation is much larger. If you extend $1 million loan to an SME, chances are they're going to create so much more employment as if you were to extend that same $1 million loan to a larger enterprise. Now, keep in mind, I'm not advocating to say large enterprises shouldn't get financing, I'm just stating a fact. So, if they are regarded as important, the question is also, is the environment conducive for them to really flourish? Is there enough support to make sure that MSMEs take their rightful place? And I have to also present you with a scary statistic. For those of you who want to go into business, please go into business. But I have to present you also with the scary fact that up to 75%, if not more, of MSMEs fail, and especially fail within the first 5 years. Now, keep that in mind when you speak to a bank in trying to get access to funding, because the fact of the matter is that for every 10 people that get access to financing, chances are 7 of them will not survive. So then it begs the question, please, if you fail, do not fail with other people's money, try to fail with your own money. So access to finance remains the main stumbling block for entrepreneurs, and again, I want to tie that to the high failure rate. So, but finance, however, is not the only impediment. There's various things within the Namibian context that prevent MSMEs from really flourishing and taking their part in the grander economy. And these are things like, legislation. It is things like how difficult it is to establish a business. Just to start a business and register a business, you have to go to so many different offices. There's not a under one roof type of solution. So there's a couple of things that is preventing MSMEs to really flourish within the context of Namibia. You can talk about the tax regime, you can talk about many other things. Access to land, access to affordable land, let's call it access to affordable land. Trying to set up a little factory or whatever the case is, chances are you're going to be blocked on so many fronts to try and get access to that land. And if you eventually get access, it is at such a high cost that it really impacts the profitability of your business. Then there's other things. The pie is just that big. The pie is just that big. And every year there's new players that try to eat from the same pie. So Namibia is a small country. And this is why, especially things like manufacturing is not doing too well. But we need to look beyond Namibia as a market. So access to the market and access to enough feed through your door is one other obstacle that we experience. You can establish a business in, let's say, Hobabas for that matter. Hobabas, I'm not, there's people from Hobabas, I'm not, having anything against Hobabas. But you can establish a business in smaller areas, but if you do not have the buying power, doesn't matter how brilliant the business, you are not going to survive unless you bridge the divide and go international or go onto the internet where you can sell your things to a broader audience. But unfortunately, I will talk about this later, the innovation part in Namibia is lacking somewhat. There is various initiatives from government. We also need to give government credit for everything that they've been doing to try to nurture MSMEs. So we also need to give credit that there's various things that they are doing and that they continue to do to try and help SMEs get access to funding. We have what we call the 3-tier approach when it comes to MSME development and how our government is supporting them. It is things like venture capital, which I hope to touch on. It is things like the guarantee scheme that provide access to capital to the lack of collateral, if you do not have collateral. And then we have the venture capital fund that is also hopefully one of these days there is going to be a permanent fixture. But government cannot be the only player. Corporate is also part and parcel of helping this. And I see that my colleague there is showing me that I need to finish. Thank you very much. I hope you can help me with keeping the time. I promise you, I'm pushing it in the right way. So what is the challenges that is faced by SMEs within the Namibian context? You have expansion capital, startup capital. There is a big impediment. You have the cost of capital. You've seen the increase in the interest rates of late. The interest rate is on a spiral, and unfortunately, if you do have debt, chances are the amount that you need to pay back is now up to 50% higher than what it was maybe 24 months ago. And this is a real risk, because what it does, it erodes your profit margins at the end of the day. You have access to the lack of skills. The lack of skills or MSMEs resistance to appoint skills, because skills come at a cost. You have the ease of doing business. The red tape is killing a lot of businesses, and this is unfortunately one thing that Africa as a whole needs to address quite urgently. So you have the cost to formalize. There's lots of informal businesses, and it begs the question, why is it that informal businesses stay informal? There is too many impediments that prevent them from getting onto the mainstream economy. And the cost of trying to formalize is also quite excessive. Then you have the cost of land, utilities, electricity. I don't have to tell you about electricity and the increases that we've seen of late. I don't have to tell you in how much your utility bill has increased. Imagine you as an individual, the increases that you've experienced, now tie that to a business that utilize much more water, much more electricity and the likes. And then the market is not expanding. The pie is remaining the same size, and that is a problem. And then the economic contraction and COVID also did not do us any favors, and that impact is going to be lasting. We're going to feel it for a while still. And then we have what we call the moral hazard. I call it the moral hazard. And this is simply that people borrow with no intention to repay. And unfortunately, it's not machines that makes decision in whether to give you a loan or not. It is individuals, it's people that makes that decision. So if 7 people coming to me fail to repay, it's going to be tough to help the next one that comes towards me. I compare this to the likes of the failure rate in Namibia. The people not paying their loans is quite high. I'm talking from a development financing perspective, and I can tell you that up to 70% of people borrowing money from me does not repay me. Now that is a scary statistic. Then you look at places like Egypt, where it's so low that they can afford to pump billions into the economy through SME Finance. In Namibia, it is extremely difficult because every client coming to you, you almost have to consider, is this going to be part of the 70% that don't pay me? So what are some of these national programs I'm going to try to speed up to make sure that I keep within the time? Obviously, I'm going to try it from a DBA perspective, banking perspective, and then other. So from DBA, we have the SME financing that exclude micro enterprises. I think micro enterprises is one of the most overlooked areas. And I think more effort needs to go into the micro space because these people are eventually what needs to be formalized, and they are eventually the ones that's going to grow bigger. But currently, nobody in the local market is really looking after the micro enterprise. So then you have the training and mentorship, which is something that I've said, you cannot just give people money, you have to help them to make a success of their business. And what training and mentorship is supposed to do is to give you the tools to make you successful and have a higher return at the end of the day. Then we have what we call skill-based. Many of you in the room will all likely qualify for that product. All you basically need is your master's degree or whatever the case is, and you can get access to financing without the need for collateral and without the need for you to also invest in your business. So these are some of the initiatives that we, from a development financing perspective, are doing. Then you have venture capital, which we hope to launch very soon. All it basically means is that we will not just invest in debt, we will also provide you with equity. The reason, the number one reason for businesses to fail sometimes is because they are borrowing too much. And that burden of repayment is unfortunately putting a chokehold on the business and its success. Then you have contract-based financing. If you have a contract, a lot has been said about the entrepreneurs that get contract, but most of them typically don't have collateral, and this is a tripartite agreement that can finance them without the need for collateral. We have other projects as well. From the commercial side, you have these various schemes, the Bank of Namibia scheme, that try to assist businesses that was impacted by COVID, and then you have the AFD guarantee scheme that First National Bank is also having, and I think one of the economists for First National is also in the room. I just need to mention that some of the time is wasted by pushing the buttons, so please bear with me if I go slightly. I just wanted to put it out there because I see it's already writing the next minutes available. Alright, from another perspective, you have the NABA, which is basically the Namibia Business Angel Network. Now, what it means is that sometimes debt is not the answer to problems of SMEs getting access to funding. Sometimes you need to also have equity. In my line of work, we normally can say the first financing that you get is from family, friends, and fools. What it simply says is that if you cannot solicit money sometimes from your mother that is supposed to love you, then it's going to be difficult convincing a parent. Please don't go ask your parents for money. We have the GIPF, which is the pension fund that also do a lot to finance not just MSMEs but large enterprises within the Namibian as well. You have the Agri-Bank that finances especially agriculture. Agriculture is a very exciting thing because as Namibia and Africa, we need to be able to feed ourselves. We are supposed to be the bread basket, but currently we are the import basket, and this is the narrative that we need to change. And this is where the likes of the Agriculture Bank, for me, is a very exciting role that they have in the greater context of things. Everybody is talking about green, 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 green. You've heard about hydrogen and everything. And the EIF is also playing a very important role in ensuring that there's funding available for green enterprises. I hope you can do. Various grant programs. People, the main thing, especially from the alumni that I can ask, equip yourself with information. Because you won't believe how many times I go to town hall meetings and the likes, and people simply don't have an idea what's out there. There's various schemes, there's various grants, there's various loans, there's various free money available, but people simply don't know. So equip yourself with the know-how, actively seeking out information to make sure that if you eventually venture into the business world that you have access to that information. And then everybody might know about the government equipment scheme and the likes. So there's 30 seconds pushing this one. So let's just quickly talk about opportunities, because this is after all looking at the way forward. Another 30 seconds. All right. Microfinancing, I've already said, one of the most neglected areas, and more needs to be done to make sure that we bring them in the fold and make sure that they become part of the mainstream economy. There's literally billions of dollars moving into the informal, moving around in the informal sector. Currently, they almost act as their own bank. Now, we need to get this onto the main stage to make sure that they can pay more employment. And this is why I say formalizing informal traders to bring them into the formal economy is of vital importance. Then you have foreign direct investment is going to be required. More foreign direct investment is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, provided that we make sure that we deal with upselling people, upselling countries, and that it's not simply coming and mine our resources and take it out without value addition. But foreign direct investment is going to increase the size of the pie, which eventually will allow entrepreneurs to also participate in the economy at large. Green hydrogen and oil, I don't have to say much about that. I think everybody knows about green hydrogen. I know the proof is still in the pudding, but we hope to also have MSMEs benefiting from this new and exciting direction that the country is taking. I also need to just mention here, somebody was mentioning the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. We need to start asking ourselves, how is it that we can benefit? My own perspective sometimes of these type of agreements is that the larger countries benefit and the smaller ones suffer. I know that the economists will tell me different. This is just a personal belief, it's not a deviant belief. But we need to start asking ourselves, how do we expand beyond the borders of Namibia? But how do we compete on equal footing with everybody out there? Renewed effort in agriculture, in the value chain development is obviously very important. Namibia is not very good at financing the value chain at all. This is part and parcel what we need to develop to make sure that we are ready for green hydrogen, and more so we are ready for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. 5 minutes there. And that is really the lives of it. I think I made good time, so thank you very much for this. But just in parting, I also need to say, I know that not enough is being done to nurture MSMEs to really, to really become a vital force for development. One thing that I have found lacking in the context of Namibia is innovation. Now, innovation is going to propel us, but if we do not invest in getting people on the innovation stream, we're going to be sitting, or we're going to be staying far behind the rest of the pack. If you look at how other countries have again industrialized, innovation sometimes was at the core of this. I haven't seen in my banking career, I have to admit, I haven't seen much innovation. Sometimes the innovation that we see is a copy and paste. Now, what happens in America, or what works in America, is not necessarily going to work in Namibia. To the extent that I've seen proposals on innovative concepts that people present to us as bankability studies, and then when you really go through the business plan, you see that they haven't even bothered to change the address of the business plan that they sold on the internet. Then you see the business, you see that the business is going to operate in Washington, D.C., but this is a person in Namibia that wants to borrow money. So what I'm saying is that, people need to invest in their own businesses, but they also need to start thinking about how do we improve on what we have? How do we do things differently from what everybody is doing? You have the campaigning services and those things. It's wonderful to also bring that innovation, but why is it that we cannot have truly Namibian innovations for truly Namibian progress? Until we go that route, we're going to continue suffering, and this is unfortunately, even from tertiary, even from lower level, I don't think we put enough emphasis on innovation, using it as a cornerstone to propel us into something better, to propel us into really industrializing as a country. So thank you very much for that. You have the opportunity to ask questions at a later stage. If I don't answer the questions, I can ask some of my colleagues to do.
Also,
Thank you very much.